The stage wasn't silent. It was waiting. Not for the crowd. Not for the music. For something, or someone, that hadn't happened yet. A name flickers on the screen, then disappears. No explanation. No apology. Just gone. Angel feels it before she understands it. That strange shift in the air. Like reality just adjusted itself without asking. And somewhere in the audience, a man watches that moment like he's seen it already. Not guessed. Not hoped. Seen. Because in his mind, this night has already played out. Just not like this. Not anymore. And that's where it starts to feel wrong. Not coincidence. Not luck. Something closer to design. Because minutes later, without warning, without logic, her name returns to the screen. Restored. Like it was never removed. Like someone reached into the timeline and rewrote it. But here's what doesn't make sense. No one admits to changing anything. No one takes credit. And the man in the crowd, he doesn't look surprised. He looks relieved. So now the question isn't about a performance anymore. It's about control. If someone could erase you and bring you back, without touching you, without speaking to you, would you still believe your life belongs to you? Or would you start wondering, who's been choosing your moments, long before you ever lived them? The city doesn't welcome people. It tests them. New York breathes like something alive, loud, restless, always deciding who matters and who disappears. Angel steps into it carrying more than luggage. She carries proof. Proof that she belongs somewhere bigger than where she came from. But the city doesn't care about proof. It cares about timing. And hers already feels off. Because long before she reaches the venue, her name has already been questioned. Removed once. Debated twice. Nearly erased completely. And she has no idea. Not yet. All she knows is the energy feels unstable. Like something is shifting beneath her steps. Backstage is chaos disguised as organization. Voices overlap. Decisions change mid-sentence. A lineup gets reshuffled without explanation. And then it happens. A screen flickers. Her name disappears. No warning. No discussion. Just gone. Like she was never meant to be here. Angel stares at the empty space where her identity used to be displayed. And something inside her tightens. Not fear. Recognition. Like this moment has been waiting for her, not the other way around. No one looks at her. No one explains anything. It's as if she's already invisible. But across the room, someone notices. John. He doesn't react like everyone else. He doesn't look confused. He studies the moment. Carefully. Almost personally. Because to him, this isn't a mistake. It's a pattern. And patterns don't exist without intention. Angel turns away, trying to hold herself together, but the silence around her feels louder than rejection. This wasn't just an opportunity. It was a door. and it just closed without making a sound. But then, a shift. Subtle. Almost unnatural. A voice enters the conversation behind the scenes. Low. Controlled. Certain. And suddenly, decisions begin to reverse. Names are reconsidered. Positions are adjusted. Energy changes direction. Like something invisible just took control of the room. Angel doesn't see who spoke. She only feels the result. Because seconds later, her name returns. Exactly where it was. As if nothing ever happened. As if reality corrected itself. But reality doesn't correct itself. People do. Which means someone chose this. And now the question becomes, who? She steps onto the stage, but something is different now. The crowd isn't just watching. They're reacting. Leaning in. Like they can feel it too. That strange, unexplainable pull surrounding her presence. The music begins. And it's not perfect. It's something else. Raw. Unfiltered. Dangerous in a way that makes people pay attention. Angel isn't just performing. She's confronting something she doesn't understand. And the audience feels it. Every note lands heavier than expected. Every lyric feels like it's aimed at something deeper than entertainment. But in the middle of it all, her eyes find him. John. Standing still in a moving crowd. Watching her like he's not discovering her, but confirming something. And that's when it hits her. This connection doesn't feel new. It feels remembered. Which makes no sense. Because they've never met. Or at least, that's what she believes. The performance ends. But the energy doesn't. It lingers. Unfinished. Unresolved. Angel steps off stage, heart racing, not from the performance, but from the feeling that something just began without her permission. She searches for answers. For the person who changed everything. For the reason behind it. But John is already gone. No goodbye. No introduction. Nothing to prove he was ever there. Except one thing. A message. Left behind where she stood before everything changed. No name attached. No explanation. Just a single line. You were never supposed to be removed. Angel reads it again. And something about it doesn't comfort her. It unsettles her. Because it doesn't sound like support. It sounds like correction. Which leads to a question that refuses to leave. If she was never supposed to be removed, then who made the mistake? Or worse, who tried to change something they weren't allowed to touch? And why does it feel like this night was only the beginning of something far more controlled than coincidence? Los Angeles doesn't ask who you are. It asks what you're becoming. And Angel arrives with a question she can't shake. Did she earn that stage? Or was she placed on it? The studio feels different from New York. Less chaotic. More controlled. But control is exactly what unsettles her now. Because everything here runs too smoothly. Too perfectly timed. Like nothing is allowed to happen by accident. She steps into the recording space, expecting noise, movement, unpredictability. Instead, she finds silence. Waiting again. That same feeling. Like something is always one step ahead of her. Then the door opens. And there he is. John. Not searching. Not surprised. Present. As if this meeting was scheduled somewhere she was never invited to see. No introduction feels necessary. Not because they know each other, but because something about this moment feels continued. Like a conversation that started somewhere else. Somewhere she can't remember. Music begins where words don't. A melody forms between them. Unplanned. Unwritten. And yet, it fits too quickly. Too naturally. Angel feels it immediately. That unsettling alignment. He doesn't just follow her rhythm. He predicts it. Before she reaches a note, he's already there. Before she changes direction, he adjusts. Not guessing. Knowing. And that's when something shifts inside her. Because collaboration shouldn't feel like this. It shouldn't feel like someone already understands parts of you that you haven't shown yet. The song they create doesn't sound new. It sounds discovered. Like it already existed somewhere. Waiting for them to find it. And that thought lingers longer than it should. Days pass. Or maybe they blur. Time in the studio doesn't move normally. Late nights stretch into early mornings without clear endings. Music builds. Connection deepens. But so does the tension Angel refuses to name. Because every moment with John feels meaningful. And manipulated at the same time. He knows things. Small things. The kind you don't share. The kind people don't notice. The kind that make you stop mid-thought and wonder. How? At first, she tells herself it's intuition. Chemistry. Something rare but real. But intuition doesn't explain everything. It doesn't explain why he finishes her sentences when she never speaks them. It doesn't explain why he avoids certain questions. Like answers would break something carefully held together. And it definitely doesn't explain this. One night, while searching for a file in the studio archive, Angel finds her name. Not recent. Not new. Dated. Months before New York. Before the stage. Before the moment everything changed. Her music. Her videos. Her performances. Collected. Organized. Studied. Her chest tightens as realization creeps in. This isn't discovery. This is observation. Careful. Intentional. Ongoing. And suddenly, every moment with John rewrites itself. Every look. Every word. Every perfectly timed interaction. It stops feeling like coincidence. And starts feeling like design. She doesn't confront him immediately. Not because she's unsure. But because she's afraid of the answer. Instead, she watches. Listens. Pays attention in a way she didn't before. And the more she observes, the clearer it becomes. John never reacts. He anticipates. Everything. Even silence. Especially silence. Then comes the performance in Miami. A festival filled with noise, lights, energy that should feel free. But Angel feels none of that. Because standing on that stage, next to him, she realizes something terrifying. The crowd is real. The music is real. But this connection, It feels constructed. And yet, she can't deny what she feels when they perform together. It's powerful, addictive, almost impossible to walk away from, which makes it even more dangerous. Because now the question isn't just about him. It's about her. Why does something that feels controlled also feel right? The performance ends in chaos and applause. But Angel doesn't stay to celebrate. She leaves. Quietly. Quickly. Back to the hotel. Back to the questions waiting for her. And that's when she sees it. Another message. This time, not hidden. Not subtle. Left where she couldn't miss it. 3 words. Simple. Direct. Unsettling. You're catching on. Her breath catches. Because this changes everything. This isn't observation anymore. This is interaction. Whoever is behind this knows that she knows. And they're not hiding it. Which leads to a realization that hits harder than anything before it. She's not just part of something carefully arranged. She's being watched. In real time. And maybe guided. But the most dangerous part isn't the control. It's the feeling growing inside her despite all of it. Because even now, knowing what she knows, she still wants to go back to him. So tell me, if something feels real, but everything around it feels planned, do you trust the feeling or the truth? Success doesn't arrive loudly. It settles in quietly and starts rearranging everything. By the time Angel notices it, her name is everywhere. Streaming charts, studio walls, industry conversations that used to ignore her now revolve around her. But success doesn't feel like elevation. It feels like pressure. Like something tightening around her life, shaping it into something specific. Something controlled. And at the center of it all is John. Still present. Still precise. Still impossible to fully understand. Their music is evolving. Bigger. Deeper. More emotional than anything either of them should be able to create this quickly. But that's the problem. It's happening too fast. Too perfectly. Like every step was already mapped out. And Angel can't ignore it anymore. Because now, the industry is watching. Labels are calling. Offers are coming in with numbers that don't feel real. And then, the offer arrives. Not just another deal. A defining one. A contract that could turn Angel into something global. But buried inside it is a condition. Subtle. Strategic. Non-negotiable. John is not part of the future they are offering her. No collaborations. No shared credits. No connection. Just her. Alone. Elevated. Separated. At first, it sounds like opportunity. But the more she reads it, the more it feels like removal. Like someone is trying to extract a piece from the equation. And she already knows which piece. When she looks at John after reading it, he doesn't ask questions. He doesn't react. He already knows. Of course he does. And that realization hits harder than the offer itself. Because now the pattern is undeniable. He's never surprised. Not by opportunities. Not by problems. Not by anything. Which means, either he understands her life better than she does, or he's been part of shaping it all along. And neither possibility feels safe. Distance begins to form. Not dramatic. Not explosive. Quiet. Subtle shifts in energy. Conversations that feel incomplete. Moments where silence says more than words ever could. Angel starts watching him more closely. Not as a partner. Not as someone she's falling for. But as a question that needs answering. And the more she watches, the more she sees what she missed before. His absence at certain key moments. His presence exactly when things begin to change. The way doors open around her. Right after he steps into a room. Then comes the discovery that breaks everything open. Not hidden. Not encrypted. Almost like it was meant to be found. A recording. Old. Grainy. But clear enough. A different artist. Talented. Rising. Standing on the edge of something big. And John is there too. Not beside them. Not supporting them. But influencing something behind the scenes. Conversations. Decisions. Subtle redirections. And slowly, that artist disappears. Not overnight. But gradually. Opportunities shift. Exposure fades. Momentum dies. Until there's nothing left. Angel watches the final clip twice. Then a third time. Because her mind is trying to reject what it understands. This isn't coincidence. This is intervention. Calculated. Effective. And now the question becomes impossible to ignore. Was that artist replaced? And if so, by who? Her hands tremble slightly as the answer forms. Because the timeline matches too closely. The disappearance. Her sudden rise. The moment John entered her life. It all aligns too perfectly. Which means one thing. Something was moved out of the way. To make space for her. She confronts him. Not with anger. Not immediately. But with something heavier. Awareness. And when their eyes meet, there's no denial. No confusion. Just silence that confirms everything she feared. He doesn't explain. He doesn't defend himself. Which somehow feels worse than any lie. Because truth without resistance is harder to escape. The connection between them fractures. Not completely, but enough to feel it breaking. Because now every moment they shared is unstable. Every memory is being questioned. Every emotion feels like it might have been influenced. And yet, the most dangerous part remains. She still feels something for him. Real. Unshaken. Even now. Which makes everything more complicated. Because if the feelings are real, but the path was manipulated, what does that make the relationship? Love? Or outcome? Then comes the Nashville performance. The biggest stage yet. The one that could define everything moving forward. But backstage, nothing feels aligned. Energy is off. Words don't connect. Silence stretches too long. And when they finally speak, it isn't calm. It isn't controlled. It's everything they've been holding back. Angel doesn't accuse. She questions. Not just his actions, but his intentions. And that's where everything shifts. Because intention is harder to prove than action. Harder to defend. Harder to forgive. The argument doesn't end cleanly. It fractures, leaving pieces of truth scattered between them. She walks onto the stage alone. Not because she planned to, but because she doesn't know who she's standing beside anymore. The lights hit. The music starts. The crowd waits. And for a moment, everything feels normal again. Until it doesn't. Her voice cuts through the arena. Strong. Clear. Controlled. And then, silence. The microphone dies. No warning. No feedback. Just gone. The music continues without her. The crowd shifts in confusion. And Angel stands there, in the center of something that just stopped working. And in that silence, a realization hits her harder than anything before it. This isn't technical. This isn't random. This feels intentional. Again. Then, from the shadows, a voice rises. Familiar. Unmistakable. John. He steps into the light. Not rushing. Not panicked. But exactly on time. Like this moment was always going to happen this way. And as he continues the song she started, finishing lyrics she never shared, one final question takes over everything. Is he saving the moment? Or completing something that was planned from the beginning? Because if he knew this would happen, then this wasn't failure. This was design. And that means she was never in control. Not of the stage. Not of the music. Not even of the story she thought she was living. So now the question becomes unavoidable. If every fall leads exactly where someone else expects it to, is it still a fall? Or just another step in a path you never chose? Silence doesn't always mean something ended. Sometimes it means something is about to be revealed. The crowd in Nashville doesn't understand what just happened. To them, it looks like a malfunction, a mistake, a technical failure. But Angel knows better now. Nothing around her has been random for a long time. And standing there, watching John finish her song, she feels it completely. This moment didn't break. It arrived. Exactly as expected. The applause that follows feels distant. Almost unreal. Because Angel isn't hearing the crowd anymore. She's hearing everything that led to this. Every strange coincidence. Every perfectly timed appearance. Every unanswered question. All converging into one unavoidable truth. This has never been just music. And as the lights dim, she doesn't follow the celebration backstage. She walks away from it. Alone. Not in anger. Not in fear. But in clarity. Because clarity doesn't always comfort. Sometimes it isolates. Backstage is loud again. People talking over each other. Blaming equipment. Fixing narratives. Trying to restore normal. But Angel doesn't engage. Because normal no longer exists for her. She moves through the noise like she's no longer part of it. Like she's stepped outside the version of reality everyone else is still inside. And John notices. Of course he does. He always notices. But this time, he doesn't follow immediately. And that's new. That's different. That's wrong. Because if he anticipates everything, then why is he hesitating now? Angel reaches the empty hallway behind the venue. The kind of place where sound fades and thoughts get louder. And that's where it hits her fully. If he's been guiding everything, then what happens when she steps off the path? She waits. Not for him. For the answer. And eventually, he appears. Slower than usual. Less certain. But still composed. Still controlled. Still watching her like she's part of something bigger than the moment. No accusation leaves her mouth. No immediate confrontation. Because she already knows what he'll say. Or worse. She knows he'll say exactly what she needs to hear. And that's what makes him dangerous. So instead, she asks something simpler. Something harder to manipulate. Why does everything work only when you're there? The question lingers between them. Heavy. Unavoidable. And for the first time in all of this, John doesn't answer immediately. Not because he can't. Because he's choosing how much truth to release. And that hesitation confirms more than words ever could. Because control doesn't hesitate. Truth does. When he finally speaks, it isn't defensive. It isn't emotional. It's precise. Carefully measured. Like every word has consequences beyond the conversation. And what he reveals doesn't feel like a confession. It feels like a fracture in something much larger. He tells her she was always going to rise. But not like this. Not without interference. Not without resistance. And that's where he enters the story. Not as a coincidence. Not as luck. But as correction. He saw something in her long before anyone else did. Potential that wasn't just rare, but inevitable. And inevitability attracts opposition. People. Systems. Decisions designed to delay, redirect, or completely erase it. So he stepped in. Not once. Not twice. But repeatedly. Quietly adjusting outcomes. Opening doors that were closing. Closing doors that would have led her away from where she needed to be. And as he speaks, Angel realizes something more disturbing than anything before it. He doesn't see what he did as manipulation. He sees it as protection. As alignment. As something necessary. Which makes it harder to reject. Harder to define as wrong. Because everything he changed led her exactly to where she is now. Standing in a reality that worked. A life that expanded. A dream that materialized. So the question TS into something deeper. If the result is real, does the method matter? But Angel isn't convinced. Because control, no matter how well intentioned, still removes choice. And choice is the one thing she can't let go of. Not now. Not after realizing how much of her path may not belong to her. She steps closer. Not emotionally. Mentally. Trying to see him clearly for what he is. Not what she felt. Not what she hoped. But what he's been all along. And what she sees isn't simple. He isn't a villain. He isn't a savior. He's something in between. Someone who believes so strongly in an outcome that he's willing to shape reality to reach it. And that's what makes him unpredictable. Because belief like that doesn't stop easily. The tension between them shifts. Not breaking, not resolving, evolving. Because now, everything is exposed. And yet, nothing feels finished. Angel turns away slightly, looking down the empty hallway. And for the first time since all of this began, she makes a decision that isn't influenced. She doesn't ask what comes next. She chooses it. I'm performing tomorrow, she says quietly. Without you. Not as punishment. Not as revenge. As separation. As proof that whatever she is, whatever she's becoming, exists beyond his influence. And that's when something unexpected happens. John doesn't resist. He doesn't argue. He doesn't try to change her decision. He accepts it completely. And that acceptance feels more unsettling than control ever did. Because if he's always been steps ahead, then why does this feel like something he already expected? Which leads to one final thought that refuses to leave her. What if stepping away is still part of the path he planned? The next night arrives. A different stage. A different energy. No John. No safety net. No invisible adjustments. Just Angel. Alone with her voice. Her choices. Her uncertainty. The lights rise. The crowd waits. And for the first time since everything began, nothing interferes. No glitches. No sudden changes. No unseen hands shifting the moment. Everything is still. Natural. Untouched. And yet, something feels off. Because absence can be just as controlled as presence. Angel sings. And it's raw. Honest. Unassisted. Every note carries weight because it belongs entirely to her. No anticipation. No correction. Just truth. The crowd feels it. Responds to it. Connects with it. And for a moment, it feels real again. Fully real. Until the final note fades. And the silence that follows feels too perfect. Too complete. Too intentional. Because somewhere, beyond the stage, beyond the lights, beyond her control, something is still watching, still waiting, still deciding what happens next. And the most unsettling part isn't the control anymore. It's the possibility that even without him there, the path hasn't changed. So now the question becomes, did she finally break free? Or did she just step into the part of the story where she believes she did? Freedom doesn't always feel like release. Sometimes it feels like being left alone with questions that no longer have easy answers. The stage empties. The crowd fades. The echoes of Angel's voice dissolve into a silence that feels complete. Too complete. Because nothing interrupted it. Nothing shifted. Nothing adjusted. And that's what unsettles her most. After everything. After all the patterns, the interference, the control, this moment arrived untouched. Or at least, it appeared that way. Backstage, the energy is different now. Not chaotic. Not controlled. Just observant. People speak to her, congratulate her, celebrate what they believe was a defining performance. But their voices feel distant. Like they're reacting to something she hasn't fully understood yet. Because her mind is still locked on one question. If he didn't interfere, then why does this still feel orchestrated? She leaves before the noise can settle into meaning. Outside, the night air feels sharper, clearer, but not comforting. Because clarity has only made everything more complicated. And that's when she sees him. John. Not hidden. Not watching from a distance. Standing in plain sight. Like there's nothing left to conceal. And somehow, that feels more unsettling than anything before. Because mystery creates distance. But honesty forces confrontation. Angel doesn't hesitate this time. No hesitation. No waiting. No observing. She walks straight toward him with something stronger than confusion. Resolution. Because whatever this is, it ends with truth. No more fragments. No more partial answers. Everything. Now. You knew I'd do that, she says, her voice steady but layered with everything she's carried. Not a question. A statement. And John doesn't deny it. Of course he doesn't. Because denial has never been part of who he is. He steps closer, not invading her space, but not retreating either. Balanced. Intentional. And when he speaks, there's no calculation left. Just clarity. Not clean. Not simple. But complete. He tells her something she wasn't prepared to hear. This was never about control. Not in the way she understood it. It was about recognition. He saw her long before the world did. Not just talent. Not just potential. Something deeper. Something that couldn't be explained through timing or luck. And when he followed that instinct, he realized something else. Her path wasn't just uncertain. It was unstable. Not because she wasn't good enough, but because too many variables stood between her and where she was supposed to be. Decisions made by people who couldn't see her. Systems that filtered out what didn't fit their expectations. Moments that could erase her without consequence. So he did what most people wouldn't even consider. He adjusted the variables. Not randomly. Not selfishly. Precisely. Each action designed to remove resistance. Not to control her outcome, but to allow it. And that's where everything shifts. Because the way he sees it, he didn't create her success. He cleared the path for it. But Angel hears something else in his words. Something deeper. Something more dangerous. Because clearing a path still changes the journey. And changing the journey changes the person walking it. Which means, even if his intentions were pure, the result is still altered. She studies him carefully, not looking for lies, but for certainty. Because certainty is what she fears now. And what she sees in him is belief. Unshaken. Unapologetic. He believed in her enough to reshape reality around her. And that kind of belief isn't easy to walk away from. But it's also not easy to accept. Because it raises one final question she can't ignore. If everything that brought her here was influenced, then what part of her life actually belongs to her? Silence stretches between them. Not empty. Heavy with everything that hasn't been. En said yet. And then he gives her something unexpected. Not an explanation. Not a justification. A choice. No influence. No adjustment. No interference. Whatever happens next, he steps out of it completely. No guidance. No presence. Nothing. And just like that, the control she feared disappears. Entirely. And it terrifies her more than when it existed. Because now, there's no one to blame. No one to question. No one shaping outcomes behind the scenes. Just her. Alone with every decision. Every risk. Every consequence. And suddenly, freedom feels heavier than control ever did. Days pass. Or maybe time just feels different when nothing is guiding it. Opportunities still come. But they don't align as perfectly. Decisions don't resolve as smoothly. Moments don't fall into place with the same precision. And Angel begins to feel something she hasn't felt in a long time. Uncertainty. Real uncertainty. Unmanaged. Unpredictable. And within that uncertainty, she starts to notice something else. Her choices feel different. Stronger. More intentional. Not because they are better, but because they are hers. Completely. And slowly. The question shifts. Not about what was controlled, but about what matters now. Then comes the final performance. New York. Where everything started. Same city. Different understanding. This stage isn't about proving anything. Not to the industry. Not to the audience. Not even to him. It's about something simpler. Ownership. The lights rise. The crowd waits. And Angel stands alone again. But this time, the silence feels honest. No hidden influence. No unseen adjustments. Just a moment waiting to unfold naturally. The music begins. And it's not perfect. Not polished. Not strategically aligned. It's real. Unpredictable. Alive. And as she sings, she feels it. Every note grounded in something she finally understands. Choice. The crowd responds. Not to perfection, but to truth. And somewhere in the distance, she sees him. Not close. Not intervening. Just watching. Like everyone else. And for the first time since all of this began, he looks like part of the moment. Not the cause of it. The song builds toward its final note. And as it lingers in the air, Angel feels something settle inside her. Not clarity. Not certainty. But acceptance. Because maybe this was never about control versus freedom. Maybe it was about understanding the difference between being guided and being defined. The music fades. The crowd erupts. But Angel doesn't move immediately. Because one last question remains. Not for him. Not for anyone else. For herself. If someone believed in you enough to shape your path, but you finally found your own way, would you walk away from them? Or choose them? Knowing everything it took to get here. And as she steps off the stage, she doesn't look back right away. Because this time, whatever happens next, won't be chosen for her. It will be chosen by her. And maybe, that's what chosen energy was never about. Not being chosen by someone else, but becoming the one who chooses. Even when the truth changes everything.